Hello, audience, my old friend. Brett and I are here to speak with you again about making your business not a dead end. Welcome to Grazora Life. Brett, what did you think of my singing?
It was great and very
Excellent.
surprising.
Yeah, that popped into my head just as I was hitting the play button or the go button. So,
Yeah, you never know what Jason might do, folks. So you always just gotta be prepared and roll with it.
I don't even know what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
All right, so what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to talk about something that a lot of small business owners really struggle with. Even big business owners really struggle with it, but it doesn't need to be that complicated.
Eat,
And
Eating donuts.
no,
Ah,
it is probably misattributing the quote, but we're going to talk about how you have to inspect what you expect. If you don't measure, you don't care.
oh man. Yeah.
Um, so today we're going to talk about scorecards. How do you actually create a usable scorecard and get your team to buy into it? Like it's something that a lot of business owners I know struggle with, and it's something that I have had to struggle with on my own and learned how to do successfully. And so now using experience working with myself, others, and from the best books, I believe I've distilled down a model that is something that you really can't screw up.
I love it. That sounds great. Let's go for it.
So um, the first thing I want to say is if you did nothing but write down the number for what you want to accomplish that day, if you have a number and you look at it every day and you ask yourself, what can I do to make it better? Just the fact that you're giving it attention will make it better. It will make your business better. Your attention
Do you
creates
remember
things.
that story? Who was it that it was one of the great uh, inspirational people of our past talked about going to a factory and big piece of chalk wrote, I think it was like maybe a 6 or something on
Yeah,
the
it's
floor.
in
Do you remember which
um
book that is?
yeah, it's in the Hill. Is it Hill?
Think and Grow
Um
Rich? Is it in that one?
yes, it's in Think and Go Rich.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in Think and Go Rich. I mean, it's shared other places as well, but that's
The
that's
most,
that's one of the places in. Yep. Yeah, the two
yeah.
different shifts.
Yeah, and just the fact that they wrote that number down, that was it, and that was the number of pieces they made during that shift, and then the next time, that the next shift comes in, sees that number on the floor, and they make one up. They do one more than the previous shift, and it just became this competition. Started measuring, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 efficiencies went up, people were bought in, and it was because, like, that may be one of the first, recorded examples of gamifying a business.
It might be. But yeah, it is completely true. So if you did nothing else than that, you just write down one number, ask yourself, how can we make this better? Because that's essentially with that story. That's what those each different team did. Each shift is like, how can I do better than that? And they went and answered the question and did better. Like it's really doesn't get simpler as a consistent way to improve your business. You just have to write down the numbers. And so but in order to do it, there are some rules if you want to go beyond just that, just having a one simple number. But remember, your attention creates things. Um, if you're fighting in the dark, if you feel like your business is a mess and it's all chaotic, it's because you don't have numbers. Like like it's that simple. You have no idea what's going on. You're flying by the seat of your pants because you don't have numbers. And so you could ask, what are the top three numbers that you currently pay attention to? And if you can't immediately spit them out to me, revenue, gross profit, uh, payroll could be your three. It could be number of deliveries made per day, number of sales calls, and whatever. But you need to be able to know what those are. And let's go ahead and distilling the best practices into a simple framework. I'm going to tell you however many departments you have in your business, you just need 3 numbers per department to start. Don't get more complicated than that.
Do you have to have a
And
full 3 for every department?
no, you don't.
Perfect.
But you should have at least 1 number per department, and preferably not more than 3. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're already tracking some metrics, you could go to 5. But if you get too many, if you're looking at too many numbers, then they all lose their value. So you've got to keep it simple so that you will actually follow through and do it, and the numbers stay meaningful. And it's something that you might have to experiment with. You might track a number for a period of months and realize that it has no effect. Like you try it, you like working to improve that particular number. It might be something that's derivative from something else. And so when you figure out what that is, you put the actual base number in, and then when you focus on improving that, you see your business change. So it's something that you do have to experiment with. But again, it's not that hard. Unless you're only planning on being in business for 3 months, it doesn't matter if you put down a number not as that's not as effective at managing, because you can change it in 3 months when you figure out that it's not doing anything for you, and you find a number that does. Because there's always a number for each department that will make a difference in how well your business grows. And
Well, and
have you seen that in your own business, Jason?
well, I can tell you not that long ago, I was stressing over something, and I was thinking that the business was at one point in in the numbers, but then I realized my data was way old. What I was thinking was recent wasn't. So then I went to the real numbers. I was like, "Oh, totally different story." And and what's really funny to me is that the number that I was thinking was real, that number, and because I thought it was real, caused me to view life and business in a totally different way than I needed to be because I didn't know the truth. And so I'm going along with this bad assumption, making bad decisions, and being unhappy when reality was totally disconnected from my perception of reality. And had I had the real number in front of my face, I'd have been happier. Everything would have been better. All these other things could have happened if I'd known the truth.
Yeah, sunlight sanitizes. So when you have the real numbers and you bring them out, it makes a complete difference in how you act as a leader. And I mean, it is a CEO's job to do this. And so let's talk about the simple framework. So 3 numbers per department. So on a spreadsheet, down the columns, might have your marketing department, 3 numbers. You might have operations, 3 numbers. You might have, whatever your different departments are, just 3 numbers for each one. And then across the top, you have 1 through 5. First week, second week, third week, fourth week. Sometimes there's a fifth week. All of those roll up to a monthly number. The monthly numbers all roll up to a quarterly number, and the quarterly numbers all roll up to a yearly number. So you can see where things are at. And um, and so it's a simple spreadsheet, and you look at it, and there's a couple of things that we want to make sure that we have some rules so that the numbers stay effective. The first rule is you need to have a responsible individual. There needs to be someone who is responsible for that number. And what that means is not only are they responsible for all the activities related to that number, but they are also the ones that put that number on the spreadsheet. They are the ones that fill out the scorecard, not somebody else. They don't get to have a functionary do it. You have that team member or the CEO, if you're the one responsible for it at the time, um, you fill out that number every single week. And then
And what's the
uh,
benefit of having that person filling in the number? Because that's a very important distinction that you're making. I want to make sure everyone understands that.
it all comes down to ownership. If I'm not the one writing the number down, then I don't really own it.
Mhm.
And at
And
the end of the day, well, that takes too much time. How long, like if you're over the marketing department, you have 3 numbers to report, how long does it take you to write those 3 numbers down? And if you don't know what those numbers are, what game are you playing? I
yeah.
mean, it's not too much to ask. If it does seem like too much to ask, then you're doing too much. You have too many different things going on, and you need to simplify. Because if you can't take the time to put your numbers down, if you're not inspecting what you expect, then again, you don't care. It doesn't matter. And so that's the first one. You have to have a responsible individual. The second one is
Can I
you should
interrupt for a
cut.
second? Because you
Yeah,
made you brought up another important point there, and it's that idea that I don't have enough time to do this. And the reason most people don't have enough time to do this is because they don't know what they should be spending their time on. So they spend their time on whatever appears to be important. Just like I had bad data and it was causing me to have a bad attitude and to make bad choices, people don't have the right data to focus on. And then all of a sudden, they're just out there chasing anything and everything instead of letting the distractions move out of the into the periphery and out of focus and stay focused on the things that truly are going to improve those numbers. So when a person starts to take the time to focus on those numbers, it actually generates more time for them because the things that they shouldn't be doing can clearly fall off to the sides over time.
yeah, and that is a great point. I know that when I was running my businesses, having the numbers gave us confidence to move forward with various initiatives, various projects, because we knew the base was happening. We knew we had capacity to grow. We knew we had capacity to try new things, to add a new product, to add a new distribution channel. If we hadn't had the numbers, if we didn't know that sales follow-ups were happening all the time, every time the way they were supposed to, then we wouldn't have had confidence that our revenue was going to stay stable. And so we had our numbers and we reviewed them every single week. And it made a massive difference and it is one of the key things that allowed us to grow because our attention went to the right places and not to where
Exactly.
it didn't matter.
Yep. All right. What's number two?
Number 2 is color coded.
Color coded, huh?
So whatever ranges you want for your numbers, so you could say like anything that's on target or above is green, anything that's within 10% of target is yellow, and anything that's less than 10% of target is red. Standard stoplight colors.
Mhm.
But and so that way, it's at a glance you can see where things are at. If everything's green, you're just like, yes, we're doing awesome. Let's move on.
Yep.
If there's a couple of red spots, you know exactly where to focus your attention, so that you can sanitize the situation and get those numbers to improve. Um, Number 3 is this is probably a really big one. Where do the numbers come from? Does the owner
Mm.
just hand them out? No. Do you let the department lead just come up with a number? No. The numbers are negotiated. So the CEO sits down with each department head to decide what those numbers are going to be together as a negotiation. If the department head presents a number that's wildly optimistic, well, that tells you as a CEO that they haven't done their homework. They haven't calculated all the things that have to happen to
That or
lead
they
to
know
making that
something
number
that you
reality.
don't.
Or there.
Yeah,
Or
and
if
it's
their
good to
number's
figure that
wildly
out.
pessimistic, then you get a better idea of the kind of person that you've hired, the kind of person that's running that department, which is useful information in and of itself. So those numbers are negotiated because basically, if I throw a plan at somebody and just say this is what you're going to do, they're much more likely to fight the plan.
Mhm.
But if they come up with the plan, it's their plan. They'll own it. They'll make it happen.
Now,
At least,
what about a business that's not this big? Because you're using the term department, and many times the department is sitting on the business owner's head in the form of a hat, and they're just moving from one department to the other when they're first trying to get this business going, or if they've been stuck in it and don't know how to move forward. So, what about in that situation? What does a business owner do then when there's not other people to bounce ideas off from?
well, when I had my very first successful business, I I was in that same situation. I wore every hat except for reconciliations. That's something my wife did, and so I would do this with myself. I would look at the numbers and I would negotiate with myself wearing the different hats and put myself on both sides of the table to to come up with numbers that mattered. And then I would look at those numbers every single week, at least and usually multiple times a week, to see where things were at. And I had different seasons. I had my sales season where my focus was on my sales. And then I had my delivery season where we actually delivered the projects that were sold previously. And I focused on those numbers to make sure that everything was in line. And I was able to do that with myself. What I've seen some business owners do is you can find a friend who's also a business owner, and you can sit down and have lunch together every week, and you can hold each other accountable to each other's numbers. You can get a coach to do the same thing. Like there's so many ways that if you can't do it with yourself on your own, that you can find somebody else to help you hold yourself accountable to these numbers, to where you can both negotiate the numbers and make them matter and be held to account. At least those are my thoughts. Do you have any tips on how to do that?
I think for a business owner, it depends how long you've been in business, but looking back at your back data is really helpful to know what you've done in the past. And and then but if you don't have that data, you can often look at your competition and try and gauge where they're at and what they're doing. And those are a couple other places you can go if you've never tracked any data before. Just like, well, how many jobs do I think they're doing? What's my capacity versus them? And do some analysis that way to give yourself some kind of guardrails to make sure you're not way too optimistic and not way too pessimistic on numbers.
Well, yeah, and I think it's important to note that this scorecard system is for businesses who are established. If you're just starting, you might have 3 numbers total.
Yeah.
It's like,
Usually it's like one number, and that's
how
how
many reach
many
outs are you doing every day?
exactly. How
Like
many
like that's
leads
that's
can I
really the only
generate?
number that
Yeah.
matters. Because if you're
Yeah.
just starting, you probably don't have that many customers. You probably have way more delivery capacity than you do fulfillment capacity than you do sales. And so you just need to make sure that you're putting your time in to get your sales.
Mhm.
Like, so whether it's the time spent doing calls or number of calls made or whatever that one number is, like if you're just starting out, you only have 1 or 2 numbers total.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yes.
was, listening to The Effective Executive recently,
Ah,
uh,
so you heard some of these quotes already, because I'm pretty
but
sure Drucker's the one that's that came
yeah,
up with them.
and what you were just saying ties back to that, in that the smaller the business is, as in there's only one person, it requires less internal structure. And he equated it to a single cell organism. It doesn't require much. It really is just one little cell, and it's doing its job, and it does all the functions. But you get to the complexity of a human body, and now you have to have a dedicated structure just so the thing doesn't fall apart. So you have the skeletal structure, and you have another dedicated structure just for bringing in calories, and then you have another dedicated structure just for bringing in oxygen, and all these different structures that aren't necessary at a small business. So as your business grows from the single cell up to a full body, you're going to get more numbers and have more departments and have more headaches that can be solved by having good numbers. But if you're just getting started, like Brett said, your only number may be just how much outreach am I doing every single day and how do I improve that?
Yeah, yeah, and, so anyway, so back to the rule. So you have a responsible individual, you color code it, you negotiate that number for what it's gonna be, and the other one is you realize that everything is a funnel. So most metrics are funnel metrics.
And what does that
And
mean?
what does that
Are
mean?
we talking
That
Russell Brunson here?
maybe. I think it's the same concept,
Okay.
but you have a funnel which, for example, if it's for sales, it's how many people do I have to talk to get X number of X dollars of revenue? And there might be a whole bunch of steps in between on that in that funnel, and you may or may not need to track them depending on your business, but it's basically the idea is that you put a whole bunch in, but you're only getting a few out at the bottom. And the 2 funnels that every business has is a customer funnel and a people funnel. And I think the people funnel is the one that a lot of business owners overlook, because if you're going to have a successful business that you're able to grow, and I don't know exactly how AI is going to change things, but from the way things still work today, most businesses need people to increase revenue and profit. And so you've really got to have that people funnel as well as a customer funnel in order for your business to grow and be successful.
Now, I want to shout out also, when you say that a department only has three numbers, that means the things that leave that department to bubble up to the next level of management, there's only three numbers. But internally, if I were, for example, in the ads department,
Yeah.
I'm going to look at a heck of a lot more than just three numbers. I'm going to look at my cost. I'm going to look at how many clicks we got. I'm going to look at what kind of bounce rate we got. I'm going to look at how many people filled out the form and then move to the next step. So there's a ton of numbers that individuals will look at, but I'm not going to
Yes.
take all those numbers to my boss and show them 37 different numbers when the boss is only needing two numbers to be able to understand what's going on at a high level.
Yeah, and that's a good clarification. The scorecard version that I'm talking about is for the leadership team. This is not an intra-department scorecard that is used by the marketing department or by the quoting department or by the um, shipping department. They may have their own separate scorecards, but whatever scorecards they have, their core number should roll up to the number that the leadership team gets. So
Yeah.
the numbers, they need to be connected, and that's one of the things that you have to be able to do when you negotiate is, again, you don't want to give an over optimistic number. That's something that's almost impossible to hit, but you don't want to be overly pessimistic either. You want to
Mhm.
have real reasonable numbers, preferably based on data of what you've done before.
Yeah.
Um, and then the final one, and this is the one that catches up a lot of business owners. I know it caught me up for a long time. You make it public.
To
The
When you say
entire
public, how public?
business.
Okay, so we're not posting it on the homepage of the website.
I mean, you could, but no. So it's public within the business. So every employee can see what the numbers are. And a lot of business owners really struggle with that because they wonder how their people will feel.
Yeah,
But at
let
the
me
end of the
throw that
day,
out there and say I'm now representing whoever just heard this, and they're thinking, "There's no way I want to tell my employees how much gross revenue, net revenue, and profit we have in the company." So how do you combat that?
but why?
Because they'll get jealous of how much money I might be making. That would be maybe one scenario. And like, "Oh, I'm not paying them as much as I'm paying myself," and therefore they'll get mad and get jealous and leave and go
Yeah,
start their own business.
that's a very, very valid concern. Um, but at the same time, their performance should be tied to those numbers.
Okay.
Their earnings should be tied to those numbers.
Mhm.
And so that's another level. And most business owners, again, when they hear this, especially small businesses, when they hear that, they have no idea where to even start with that. Well, it's because they don't have numbers in the first place.
Yeah.
First, you have to have the numbers. You have to share the numbers. And another level of that is to tie your people's compensation to the numbers. That way they're not resentful because as they make the numbers go up, they make more money. And so do
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, and I think that the big important critical piece is a business owner doesn't know how to take that information and create buy-in from the team. And that's why it's scary because the immediate thought is fear, danger, this is going to cause problems. But what if the exact opposite happened? And I was in a meeting just the other day, and this guy was talking, and he said, "My mentality is I should be making," I don't remember if it was 500,000 or 1,000,000 a year from this business. So if my employees can make me whichever number it was, $1,000,000 in profit that I get to take home, I want to give them as much of the extra as we can because I'm happy with 1,000,000. That's my number. And so his mindset was if I'm sharing with them the team that we're looking at the possibility of doing 2 million net or 3 or 4, all of a sudden the employees are highly motivated to move from that. Maybe the company's going to give 900,000. How do we get that to 2 million? Because then the employees get to split the rest. And that was his idea of if I go about it that way, I can share all the numbers with them. They're going to work so hard because they want a piece of that pie. They want a piece of that reward at the end of the day. And so it goes from being that they're going to be demoralized by it to they're going to be energized by it.
Yeah. The biggest thing I would say about that though because that is a good way to do it, is um, default to trust. Because if you don't trust the people that you've hired within your company, what does that say about the people that you have in your company? What does that say about you as a leader? So if you can't trust them with the numbers, you can't trust them to behave in a way that's conducive to the health of the company, to you, to your financial health, to their own financial health, then why are they there in the first place?
Mhm.
And so I think that's a fundamentally different issue that isn't directly tied to a scorecard. It's only revealed when discussed.
Well, it looks like we lost Brett, so we'll just continue without him and hope that he shows back up. There we go. Here he comes again.
Am I here?
Well,
Okay.
welcome back. I'm glad you
Yeah.
could make it.
So, anyways, I don't
Someone
know
didn't
where
want you to
exactly
say that. That whatever you were saying.
they didn't not somebody didn't want me. So it's an issue if you struggle with the idea of sharing numbers with your people, that the scorecard reveals a separate fundamental issue with your business. It's not the scorecard in and of itself.
And
It's yeah, go ahead.
and to go along with that, this can take time. And it's going to take if we just walk into a company and drop this on them and you've been doing business a certain way for a few years and you have a team and all of a sudden you drop it on them with no warning, that can cause them to react with fear as well. So it's much better to take a nice gradual approach on this to help people understand, hey, as a business, we're trying to shift from where we are to being more successful, helping all of us be profitable, and come up with a good plan and strategy to first get buy-in from your team so that they'd understand what this is all about and that it's a good thing, and then introduce it in stages and steps so that it's something that when it does come in, it feels like something that's helping them. And then that also relieves some of that concern back and forth of, is this going to be well received? Are they going to go off and do things that I don't trust or can't trust them with this? How are they going to behave? If you take it in
Yeah.
gradual steps, this can implement really successfully.
Well, and there's even a book called The Great Game of Business that you can read and learn how to do it. Follow a step-by-step guide and see how it's transformed other companies. So yeah, there's more detailed guides about this. Real quickly, where we just have a few minutes left, I just want to bust a couple of beliefs around scorecards that a lot of small business owners have. The first one usually is, I have no idea what to measure,
Hmm.
which is completely unacceptable today. Because if you don't know what to measure, there is such an easy way to find out. Jason, you want to tell us what it is?
Yeah, if you don't know what to measure, you I would say you start out by measuring how many cookies you're eating a day. And
That could work.
pretty soon you'll realize that was a really dumb metric, and then you can start getting serious about it. And for me, I would say if I was in that position of I'm looking around and I have no clue what to measure, I would just pick a couple of numbers right out of the gate so that I've got something. And then what I would do is I'd look at those numbers and say, is that really going to take me where I want to go? Because as a business owner, I don't truly know where you want to go. Brett doesn't know where you want to go, but you know where you want to go. I had this friend recently told me his goal was to be able to go fishing on a regular basis whenever he wants to. And he knows what he has to accomplish to do that. And so for him, he has a financial number he has to reach, but he also knows he has to do so many jobs and he has to have those jobs done with excellence. So backing off from that idea of I want to go fishing all the time down lets him know, well, I have to have this much revenue coming in so that I can go fishing. What do I need to do to make sure the revenue is coming in? Well, I have to have customers and we have to fulfill in a certain way. And so it would be very easy for him to grab a couple of numbers by walking down from what's important to what has to get done so the important thing happens.
Oh yeah, and if you don't have that, if you just don't even know, ask AI. Tell it what kind of business you are, tell it what you're looking to do, and it will tell you what industry standard numbers or what numbers are standard for your industry, for your business to be tracked. And from that list, you can pick the numbers that you want to use. Um, so saying you don't know what to measure doesn't fly today. It's like the resources are freely available.
I would
Then
caution you a little bit about AI though, because AI gives good general information, but it doesn't always know you individually. But it's
which is
still a great
which is why
starting
it's a
point.
starting point. Yeah.
Yep, still a great starting point. And the cool thing is, if you realize you're measuring the wrong numbers, it's pretty easy to change. It's your company.
Yeah, which we've already talked about.
Yep.
So another belief, if we can get to it real quick, is that it's too much work to keep track of a scorecard. And we've kind of already covered this, but the idea is if keeping track of the numbers, because the scorecard defines a game that you've asked everyone to play. So you think about it, is it fair to your team members to kick them off the team because they sucked, because they couldn't score when you didn't even tell them how to score? Is it like, is there a net? Is there a hoop? Like, how do I make points? Like, if you haven't even defined how they can win, then how can you expect them to play the game well? And so if you feel like you're doing too much work, again, we've already covered this. It's because you probably are, because you don't have numbers. Get the numbers, and the things that don't matter will fall away.
I love it.
And then, and again, we've covered this one a little bit already, but you've got to make sure. One concern I see people have is that the numbers teach their people that it's okay to lose, and that's where negotiating good numbers really comes in,
Hmm.
so that your people will play to win as opposed to playing not to lose. And
Mm,
so it's something you got to be careful with your scorecard and make sure that you're actually doing the negotiations in the right way, so that you can get numbers that are meaningful, that are a push, but aren't so far that your team you have people in various departments just trying to cover their butts and say it's not my fault that we didn't hit X number.
right.
You got to be reasonable and realistic.
Yeah, we could spend a whole whole episode talking about playing to win or playing not to lose again, because that's a powerful
Yeah.
message.
Anyway, thanks everyone.
Yep. We'll see you next week.